Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our August onX Hunt 101 Masterclass. We'll give it just a minute or two to let folks get signed in and get situated. So while we're waiting, just a little bit of housekeeping. Don't worry if you have any noise in the background or anything. Your audio and video are turned off, so we can't see or hear you. If you do have a question you'd like us to answer, we do have a couple representatives from our customer support team answering questions as we go through. We'll also try to take a few live towards the end of the class and answer them on the air. So please use the Q&A feature along your bottom bar for all questions. The chat is also there, but the chat is not a great place for questions. They just tend to get lost there. Great place to let us know where you're tuning in from and who you are. But please put those questions in the Q&A box. This class is being recorded, so we will be sending an email out to everybody tomorrow evening. About this time, you'll get an email from us that will have the YouTube link to the recording so that you can go back and watch it if you have to leave early or something like that. And finally, we are doing a giveaway. We're giving away some onX Hunt t-shirts, and we will post that giveaway link in the chat towards the end of the class. So with that, looks like we got quite a few folks in here. Let's get to our agenda for the day. So we're going to be running through kind of the basic nuts and bolts of the onX Hunt app. We don't have time to go over every single feature. Some of them are beyond the scope of a 101. So we'll start off with the membership options, the different type of memberships that are available to you. Then we'll get into the app itself and talk about map layers, how to use the app when you don't have service by using offline maps. Some of our map tools, particularly waypoints, we'll spend some time on. We'll take a look at the location button and using the compass mode. We'll get into some different imagery options and our different base maps, how to perform a search, and then at the end, with the time left, we'll do our Q&A and our giveaway. So to start off, you have a couple different membership options for onX Hunt. If you've never used onX before and you create an account, that's going to start a trial for you. So a trial is basically simulating what it would be like if you had a premium one-state membership. So it's a 7-day trial. You're not paying anything for that trial, and it gives you just the features that you would get with our premium membership. So you're able to mark waypoints, you're able to save offline maps, you're able to see your location, turn on layers, all that stuff. After 7 days, when that trial expires, you go to a basic membership, and the basic membership is very limited. You're basically just getting a map view. You're not really able to do much else besides that with that free basic membership. The paid membership options are Premium 1 State, Premium 2 State, and our Elite membership. So the premium memberships get you access to map layers for 1 state or 2 states, depending on if you select the 1 state or the 2 state premium membership. Lets you mark waypoints, lets you save offline maps, lets you turn on different base maps and imagery, use the compass mode, all that good stuff. And then kind of our full spectrum membership is our Elite membership. Now that gives you access to map layers for all 50 states plus Canada. So you get, no matter where you are, in the 50 states or Canada, you're gonna have some layers available to you there to turn on. It also gets you access to some Elite only tools. So things like our hunt research tools for next spring, next winter, next spring, when you're looking at tag applications, particularly in the Western states, is what we have the data for right now. Gets you some Elite only tools like TerrainX, which is a terrain analysis tool within the onX web map. Also gets you some access to discounts with partner brands, companies like First Light, Schnee's Boots, Bushnell, and also some learning courses. So we've partnered with a lot of different experts in the hunting space, whether it's elk calling, whitetail deer hunting, dog training, both upland and retriever. We get you some free modules in different education courses, as well as discounts on full access to courses like the Elk Collective, like THP's Deer School, Retriever Roadmap, and folks like that. So what I'm going to do now is let's close out of this slideshow, and I'm going to pull up the map on my tablet here. So if you're watching this on a computer screen and you have the ability to pull up onX on a tablet or on a phone, that's a good thing to do so that you can follow along. That's a great way to learn. So you can do what we're doing here, just help you get up to speed a little faster. So there is always a bit of a lag here with Zoom. So I will try to slow down my talking to match what's happening on the screen here. I'm going to zoom in a bit. So this is the onX Hunt app. We're located in Missoula, Montana. You can see my blue dot there showing where we're located here. You should see something similar to this when you turn your map on. I'm going to remove this orange circle here just so that it's not distracting us. That's a remnant from a previous class. So as I'm looking at the map right now, you can see different coloration and some different writing on the map. So my private parcels are going to have an orange boundary around them with the name listed on them. Public parcels or government lands, that's how they're titled in the app, are going to have a colored filter over them, and that is going to tell you what kind of land that is. We'll get to that in a moment. If you have a paid membership and you're not seeing what I'm seeing, you're not seeing those private land parcels with the orange boundaries, or you're not seeing the government lands with the different coloration, your layers may have just gotten turned off. So layers are all controlled in the lower left-hand corner of the map, that Hunt Map Layers button. So if everybody goes lower left corner, tap Hunt Map Layers, that's going to open up my layer menu there. Now, right now, I have Montana as the only state that's turned on. Below Montana, there are some other layer folders. You can see them listed like current conditions, land and access, road trails and rec, etc. Those are all nationwide folders. So whether you have a premium membership or an elite membership, you're able to access those layer folders. This account has an elite membership, so I'm able to turn on additional states just by scrolling down. And then at this part of the menu, the states I have turned on show up at the top, so Montana's listed there, and then they're alphabetical. Canada is also listed there. So let's say I wanted to turn on Idaho. I tap on the button, the slider button to the right of Idaho. It's moved up and joined Montana. And now I have those Idaho layers showing at the top of my menu. I can open up the folder and see the different layers that are available to me. And if I want, I can also tap the button on the left-hand side there that says Remove State. And that will remove Idaho. So that's how you turn states off and on with an elite membership. Again, if you have premium 1 state, you just have the 1 state available to you. 2 states with premium 2 state. Let's dig into our state folder here. This is how you can turn individual layers off and on. Private lands, government lands, and hunting districts are going to be turned on by default. Now, your state, they might not be called hunting districts. They might be called deer permit areas, game management units, hunt zones. Every state uses a little bit different vernacular for that, but it's the way your state breaks down, your either what tag you have, the areas you're allowed to hunt, or just for reporting and management and things like that, right? So these layers can get turned off, like I mentioned. If I turn off the private lands layer, you see that it's no longer showing me those boundaries and the names. So if your map, we hear this from customers once in a while, they say, oh, I can't see private lands anymore. I know I have a paid membership. Most of the time it means that layer just got turned off. Same thing with government lands. If I move over outside of town here, you can turn them off and on. Now, government lands is a little bit different since it does put that coloration on the top. That is one that people sometimes want to turn off. I don't think it's absolutely necessary if I really want to zoom in. As I zoom in, you can see that it automatically gets more transparent. That's automatic for you. So I can hardly tell that layer is turned on right now. If I toggle it, I can't tell at all. So I recommend leaving those two layers turned on almost at all times. I can't think of the last time I personally turned it off outside of a demonstration like this class, just to show what that looks like. I leave those turned on. And so you might be asking, what do all of those colors mean? One of the best tips I can give you in the onX Hunt app is if you don't know what something means, just tap on it. That is kind of our map legend. We don't have the classic, if you're used to a paper map where it has a legend and tells you what all the symbols mean. We don't have that. You get the legend, you get that information by tapping on the map. So for example, what is this green coloration here? If I tap on the map, it's going to pull up this information card along the bottom of my screen. Tells me that's Lolo National Forest. I can scroll down, I can get some more information. It tells me this is a restricted area because I have that. That's a separate layer that I have turned on. Tells me the hunting unit that I'm in. Tells me how many acres, all that stuff. So if I move over here to this blue, state of Montana, everything's color coded. Yellow is going to be BLM lands. National park lands are purple. Military installations are typically pink. You get the idea. Same thing for private lands. If I want to find out the ownership, I can tap on it, and it's going to tell me who owns that private land, their tax address, their county, and their acreage. So if you are looking to find out who owns what property, and maybe you want to get in touch with them to try to request hunting permission, or maybe you shot a deer and it ran onto their property, and every state has different laws. A lot of them, you have to have the explicit permission of the landowner to pursue that deer. You can get their tax address. So that's not necessarily the address where that parcel is located. It's the address where they receive their mail, right? So a lot of times if it's farm field, there's no mailing address, right, to a cornfield. So it will be to the tax address of the landowner there. So that's a great opportunity. We are getting up to hunting season right now, but I know, a lot of states won't open for a few weeks to a month. Write some letters to request permission from landowners, things like that. We do often get the question why we don't have phone numbers within the app. The reason we don't include phone numbers in there is largely out of respect for landowners. You can imagine if we started publishing everybody's phone numbers within the app, how many phone calls Farmer Jim down the road, who's got a lot of great whitetail deer hunting on his property, you can imagine how many phone calls he would get. Or, the rancher in central Montana that's got a lot of elk on his property or something. So that's the reason we don't do that. But you have the name, you have the tax address, you can maybe search the white pages, you could send a letter, you could do a Google search or something like that. Okay. One more layer I want to talk about in here is the hunting districts layer. You see it looks a little bit different. It's got that 17 towards the right there. That tells me there are sub layers for this layer. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see what this looks like. The hunting districts, again, in your state, they're probably called something different: deer permit areas, deer zones, etc. That's these green kind of irregular shapes here with the numbers in them. If I zoom in a little bit, they pop up again. Now, a lot of states have different districts or different zones for different species. We hear about this, and Wyoming seems to be the most common we hear about because they break theirs out a lot more than other states. So right now, of the 17 different sublayers, deer and elk is turned on for Montana. We will typically default to the most popular game animal in that state. Most states, it's going to be your deer zones are turned on. But let's say I drew an antelope tag this year, which I did, luckily. I'm going to turn on the antelope zones. You can see how they change, right? So we commonly will hear from folks in Wyoming around draw times and around October 1st when a lot of their big game seasons open. And the call usually goes something like this, like, man, I'm looking at your app and I'm looking at the Wyoming Game and Fish map and the numbers are different. You guys have it wrong. We don't have it wrong. What they are looking at might be the antelope districts in onX and the deer districts in the Wyoming Game and Fish PDF in the manual or something. So you just got to double check and make sure. Again, more of an issue in the western states for those big game tags where things look different. You know, you can tell when I go through these, they change quite a bit. So double check that, make sure that you have the proper sublayer turned on there. So I'm gonna go back to deer and elk, and I'm gonna close out of this. Every state's gonna have some different layers. So yours is not gonna show the exact same thing as Montana. You know, Wyoming's gonna be different, Alabama's different, Maine is different. So take some time and take a look at the different layers available to you in your state. A lot of them will have some form of walk-in access program. In Montana, we call that block management. You can see that layer listed there. And it'll look like this on the map, black border with red dots. If your state has a walk-in program where it's private access open to public hunting, that's something to check out as well. We'll have a layer for every state that has that data available to us. And I think 30 some states at this point have a walk-in program. Couple other things to mention. There are other layer folders in here, like I talked about earlier. Current conditions, big one in there right now is the active wildfire layer. If we go south of town, I'll show you, this is a fire that just started down the Bitterroot Valley south of town here. I think it was last Friday, a lightning strike. So you can take a look at what those fires look like. And again, these are available to you even if you don't have an elite membership. You do just have to go into these nationwide folders like current conditions and land and access to turn them on. Another question we sometimes get is, man, I know there's a fire right by my house, but I don't see the wildfire layer listed under Colorado. It's because it's a nationwide layer, it's not state specific. So you wouldn't find it under Colorado or whatever your state of choice is. It's in these folders. Same thing with land and access, things like the wilderness areas, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas are listed in there. I do want to mention the roads, trails, and rec really briefly. I think these are some underutilized layers within the app. So trails are what they sound like. They're going to be hiking, biking, horseback trails. And I do recommend turning on the trail slope layer because it's going to color code the trails like you see on my map right now by how steep they are. So red is very steep, green is flat, and it'll go from green to yellow to orange to red to kind of tell you how steep a trail is. Again, if I turn that off, you see the difference there on my map, right? Just another piece of information to help you when planning a route. Recreation sites are great to have turned on. That's going to tell you locations of boat access sites, campgrounds. We even have breweries in there, trailheads, all kinds of good information on the recreation sites. That's another layer I never turn off. And the underutilized one is that motorized roads and trails. If you have Forest Service property near you or you hunt Forest Service property, you need to have this layer turned on. It's going to show me these purple and white lines here. So if I turn that off, you see how the map changes. Those are going to be roads that I can drive a motorized vehicle on. Now, some of them are going to be only open to a dirt bike. Some are going to be 50-inch width restrictions, so 50 inches or less. So you're talking your smaller side-by-sides, your ATVs, your dirt bikes. Some of them are open to passenger cars. You can find that information out, again, by tapping on the road. We keep coming back to that. So if I zoom in here, I'm going to tap on this road. Again, it's National Forest, but if I scroll down to the section about motorized roads and trails, it gives me the name of the road, the ID number, how long that segment is, and then the important stuff. What's it accessible by? Overland, think of as a passenger car. Now, maybe not a lowrider is not going to make it through there, but if you've got a pickup truck, an SUV, a lot of times it's going to work on that road. You know, and they're Forest Service roads, they don't receive a lot of maintenance, so you might have washouts or logs across them, stuff like that. But your cars, it's legal on there at least. Some of them won't say overland and they'll say high clearance 4x4. Those are going to be rougher roads. I drive a pretty well stock GMC pickup truck. Some of those high clearance roads, I do drive my truck down there, ones I'm familiar with. Some of them, I'm not getting my truck down. So you do have to do some ground truthing sometimes, but that will give you an idea. If it says overland, it's generally going to be in better shape than the high clearance. And then the open and close dates are important so that you don't drive out there and find a locked gate because that road has a seasonal closure. A lot of them in Montana will close this coming weekend, September 1st. We'll have kind of a section of roads that close. Some will close in October when our rifle season starts, and then some will close right when rifle season ends. And they won't open up until later in the spring, largely to protect wintering areas, and then in the spring to protect calving and fawning areas and things like that. There's a lot of map layers available to you. I don't know what we had at last check, but with all the states, we're hundreds and hundreds of layers. Take some time and turn different layers off and on and see what they do. There are a bunch of layers I almost never use just because for my style of hunting, it's not pertinent information, or my area of the country where I hunt, it's not as applicable. Everyone is a little bit different, and that's the nice thing is you can customize these and turn on the layers that you want and turn off the ones that you don't. And if you're ever looking at your map and you're like, man, there's a weird coloration on the map. It's another question we sometimes hear is, man, what's all this? There's different colored blocks on my map, or that's usually how it goes. I'll show you what that means. That's the precipitation radar layer can get turned on. Now we're pretty clear skies here, but if you're ever seeing like, man, it looks like a weather pattern on my map, it's a layer that got turned on. 9 times out of 10, if you're seeing weird coloration on your map, you don't know what something is, check your layers and just toggle them off and on one at a time. Most of the time, like I said, that's going to be the culprit. Another one we hear about are the forest visitor maps in roads, trails, and rec. These are like scanned paper maps that this is one of those I very rarely use, but a lot of people do like them because there's some older information on there that doesn't transfer over to the digital map. But this is also one we hear from people who say their map is stuck on topographic and they can't see satellite imagery. 9 times out of 10, forest visitor map got turned on. So we're going to leave layers for now. There's a lot. We could do classes and classes on layers. If you do have questions, let us know in the Q&A box there. We'll answer as many as we can. But let's get to offline maps. So I'm going to back up. To get to offline maps, go right below that Hunt Map Layers button, farthest bottom left corner of the map screen, and tap Offline Maps. When you do that, you may see some boxes show up on your map like I have here. These are maps that I have saved previously. If you don't see any of those, no worries. Just means you haven't saved a map before. So what does it look like to save a new map? I'm going to go up northwestern Montana. And let's say this is the area I want to hunt. I'm going to first move my map to the general area. Then I'm going to tap New Map. Now I have this red box on my screen, and whatever is within that red box is what is going to be saved for offline use, for when I don't have cell service. I can still zoom out a bit, and I can zoom in to kind of customize the size of the map. For Western hunting, I always want the biggest map I can of a certain detail level. So down below, you'll notice it says choose map detail. You have 3 options, low, medium, and high. So the medium is chosen by default. For Western hunting, that's what I use 95% of the time because it gives me about a 30 by 40 square or 30 by 40 box. Every map dimension is going to be a little bit differently depending on your device and the dimensions of your device screen. So if you're not getting the same mileage as me, don't worry, nothing's broken. You're probably not on the same iPad that I'm on here. So I can still, with one finger, move the map around, get it set where I want. Then I can go down. If I want to choose a different detail level, I can. I can go to high detail. And when I go back, I grew up in Minnesota. I go back every year to deer hunt. When I go back for deer camp in November, this is what I use because we're hunting the same family deer camp. We've hunted since the 70s. We know where our stands are. We're probably not moving out of that area. So I will use this smaller map just because I don't need the big one, and it does give me a little bit higher detailed satellite imagery. To me, the difference between the high and medium detail is mostly negligible. I've never been hunting and said, man, if I had a little bit more imagery detail, I would have gotten that buck or gotten that bull. It's not necessarily make or break like that, but in those instances where I don't need the bigger map, might as well save the high detail. Okay, so you can see it's quite a bit smaller than the medium. And then if I go to a low detail, that's going to be the biggest map. So it's about 150 miles wide, depending on your device. So I can save all of Montana with a handful of these low detail maps. These maps I think of as backups. So when I go to eastern Montana on my antelope hunt this year, I'm going to probably be driving around quite a bit looking for antelope on public land. I will save a bunch of medium detail maps and I will kind of grid them together and put them right next to each other. I'll show you what that looks like here in a bit. But I'm also going to save low detail ones that cover my entire hunt area. So if I go to all my usual spots and man, it's not working, I got to go somewhere else, at least I have that low detail map so that I can see property boundaries, I can see roads and trails and rec sites. What you lose with the low detail is some of the detail on the imagery. The resolution on your satellite imagery is not quite as good. So utilize different size maps, use what works for you. I'm gonna go back to this medium one. I'm gonna zoom in on the area I want. I'm gonna pull this menu up with my finger towards the top. One thing I do recommend is changing the name of your saved maps. It's gonna just give you the date and time as the filler there. To me, that doesn't mean anything. I name all my maps so I know where I have them saved. So since this is northwestern Montana, I'm just gonna name it, if I could spell Montana would help. Name it northwestern Montana and tap the save button. And then that is gonna start downloading. You can see that chugging away down below. Might take a minute or two depending on your device and your internet speed there. Okay, I mentioned before, well, what if I want a bigger area? No problem. I see that green line of the boundary of my map. I just repeat the steps. I go into save a new map, and then what I can do is I can line these up. And I typically will have a little bit of overlap. Medium, name it, Northwest Montana 2, and hit save. So you can picture what that would look like if I wanted to save all of Region 1 in northwestern Montana, for example. I would have a bunch of those maps. Some people call it quilting them together or gridding them out. Once I have that saved, I'm good to go. I can drive up to northwest Montana. I haven't been to those exact spots where those maps are personally. I'd like to sometime. There's probably not very good service there if I know northwestern Montana. What I do 9 times out of 10 when I'm hunting is I will put my phone into airplane mode. That's one of the other questions we get is, man, how do I save my battery life? When I have my offline maps saved, put my phone into airplane mode, that tells the app to go into offline mode. And that will automatically show you your offline maps. You don't have to go in and select them or tell the app, hey, turn this one on, turn that one on. They'll turn on automatically. You can still see your location because the location on your device is determined by the GPS receiver in your device. It's not determined through the cell tower. So you can see where you are within those maps. You can mark waypoints. You can track yourself. Almost everything you can do well online, you can do offline. There are a handful of layers that don't work offline, like that precipitation radar I talked about earlier, since that's pulling weather data. That one doesn't work offline. Our 3D maps don't work offline just yet. But by and large, what you can do online, you can do offline. And then the nice part about airplane mode is it turns off the cell signal to your phone. That's one of the biggest drains on your phone's battery, is if it's always trying to ping a cell tower and is trying to get that service. Even if I'm in marginal service where I might have some, I typically put it in airplane mode, and that extends your battery hugely by a factor of 2, 3, 4, 5 times, probably more than that. It's pretty rare when I'm in airplane mode that I need to use a backup power bank when in a day of hunting. Now, if I'm backpack hunting over multiple days, at some point I'm going to need that power bank. But for a day hunt, especially on a newer phone, it doesn't have to be brand new, but if it's newish, the battery's still good, you're gonna be pretty good in most cases. If it's really cold, that drains battery and stuff like that. So scrolling down here a bit, you see some of these other maps that I had previously saved, and some of them say update available under them. Once you save a map, it's like a screenshot of that area. Okay, but things change over time. So as we update land ownership information, or if there's a hunting boundary change or a trail or something changes within that area, you'll see that update available message. That means something's changed in the map. You should update to get the most up-to-date data for that area. To do an update, I'm going to do one on this map titled Big Snowies. I'm tapping the green check mark. That's going to queue up that download. So if you want to do them one at a time, if I tap the one below it, it's just going to queue it up. When the first one's done, the second one updates. You can also go to the ellipses in the upper right-hand corner of this offline maps menu. So when I tap there, I can update all of my maps if I want. That's typically what I'll do, just sitting at the office on a Friday afternoon. If I'm going out hunting the next day, I'll go ahead and update all my maps. Don't feel like you have to do this all the time, however. You could, especially in a state like Montana, where we have pretty rapid property ownership updates, you could do an update almost every day. That's not necessary. If you want to, more power to you, but don't feel like you can't go hunting if there's an update available. We've heard from people sometimes of, man, I had to stop and pull over and get Wi-Fi at the McDonald's so that I could update my maps when I was driving out hunting. If you're driving out hunting, go hunting, update when you get back or update when you think about it. It's usually not mission critical. Just do it before hunting season, do it once a month, do it when you think about it. Don't let them go years and years, but also don't let it prevent you from going out hunting or something like that. If you're waiting for an update, just go. You'll see a couple of these maps don't have a green check mark next to them. They have an arrow pointing down. If I tap on this one titled Missoula West, it'll bring me to that map. And you see this one looks a little bit different on my screen. This one doesn't have a green box. It's got a red and white striped box. That means that there is a map of that area, but it's not downloaded on this device. So if I use a tablet and a phone, for example, and I like to do all my pre-scouting at home on my tablet, I can save a bunch of maps on my tablet, but they won't automatically transfer to my phone. When I pull my phone up, I'll see a bunch of these maps with the stripes on them. That's your account recognizing there's a map saved on this account, but it's not on this device. So that's not going to be usable until I download it. To download it, just tap the arrow and it's going to queue it up. Okay. A couple other ways you could get in this situation. If you get a new phone and you have to, you get rid of your old one, you get your new one, you get it all set up. All you have to do is download onX again and log back in with your email and password. You don't have to purchase again or anything. We get that question once in a while. That'll all transfer over, all your waypoints, but your offline maps do need to be downloaded to that new device. So you might see that if you have to get a new phone, all your offline maps need to be downloaded again. Last example here, I mentioned antelope hunting earlier. In Montana, in my area at least, I can draw that tag every couple years, maybe every 2, 3 years. So I will save a whole bunch of maps of my antelope hunting area, but on those off years, I don't really need them. But I don't want to have to go in when I do draw a tag and physically download all those maps. So I will offload those. I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to scroll down to this one that says tobacco roots. I'm going to tap on the ellipses and I can hit remove from device. This gives me this warning and I hit remove. So what that means is the map data has been removed from my account, but the boundary is still remembered. So I can use that to save up space on my device if there's an area that I know I'm not going back to for another couple of years. Or maybe I'm making a trip to South Dakota, I'm going pheasant hunting, I'm going for 5 days. I'll download the map, hunt 5 days. When I'm done, offload it. Next year, when I make my South Dakota trip, I can just re-download that with the touch of a button. So that's what that's there for. I think we pretty well covered offline maps. Again, if you have questions, let us know. But we're going to move on to our tools. So you have a couple of different map tools available to you. And this tool menu is in the center bottom of my screen. Along my toolbar at the bottom, the one that says tools looks like a Swiss Army knife. Tap on that. It's going to pull up this menu. The tool we're going to focus on most today is our waypoints. Those are, in my opinion, the most useful. That's what people are going to get that's what gets used the most. And, that's kind of what most people think of when they think of map tools and onX. So there's a couple different ways to mark a waypoint on the app. The first way I'm going to show is marking my location. So you can see my location dot here with that blue dot located here in Midtown, Missoula. If I tap the button that says mark my location along the top row there, second from the right, that is going to put a waypoint where I am. So this is what I use when I'm out in the field. If I want to mark where my truck is parked before I leave, I hit mark my location. If I want to mark a tree stand that I just put up while I'm standing there or while I'm sitting in the tree stand, I'll hit mark my location. I mark buck rubs, elk wallows, places I've flushed a grouse, you name it. I've heard the phrase waypoints are free. So it's kind of like fishing, hook sets are free. Mark waypoints. The more you put into this program, the more you're going to get out of it. And along those lines, don't just mark red X's like I have there. That's what is marked by default. But if I see a nice buck rub, for example, and I hit mark my location, next year, I don't know what I was marking. Right? If it says my location 8/27/24 and there's just a red X, well, what was I marking there, right? So you need to customize your waypoints. To customize a waypoint, tap on it. It'll highlight the waypoint, pull up this menu, and then in the lower left-hand corner, tap that edit button. So from there, the first thing I'm going to do is rename it. Whatever you want to name it. Truck. Jack's deer stand, pheasant flush, right? Whatever makes sense to you. Since we're at the onX office here, I'm going to name this office. Next thing to do is to change your waypoint icon. So at the top, my most recently used ones are showing location, glass and area, buck, mule deer, truck. We've got 90 or so waypoints. I should count them sometime. Pick the one that works for you. We don't have a waypoint for everything, so sometimes you got to get a little creative. In this example, we don't have an office waypoint, of course. So I'm just going to use the house one. I'm going to tap on it. It highlights. And then I'm going to change the color of the waypoint, most likely. This is a great way to organize your waypoints, is by color. Everybody's got a little bit of a different system. I'm kind of unique at the office, at least from my talking with everybody, and I do mine by species. So I hunt pretty much everything they'll let me, right? This weekend, I'm going grouse hunting with my dog. Weekend after elk opens, I'm going to be chasing elk. Got an antelope tag this year. I'm excited about ducks, pheasants, deer, bear in the spring, turkeys, all that. So I do mine by color. So that when I'm looking at the 1,500 waypoints I have saved on my personal account, I can tell at a glance what kind of waypoint I'm looking at. So my bear waypoints are blue. My upland waypoints are yellow. My elk waypoints are brown. Okay, so whatever makes sense to you. There's no real wrong way to do it besides doing nothing. My deer waypoints are this orange because that's when I first got onX. That's all I was hunting for the most part. And that's still what I hunt probably the most. So it makes sense to use the default one for the waypoints that I'm marking the most. For the office, I'm going to make it white just so that it kind of stands out. And then from there, if I want, I can take a picture and attach it. I do this for wallows, rubs. I do it for tree stands. I'll sometimes stand at the bottom or stand back a little ways and take a picture of the tree stand. So when I'm hiking in, if I get turned around or it's dark, I can kind of see what it looks like. I'll do this with success photos. I'll take my grip and grin from a deer or something and put it in there, and then it kind of becomes a journal and becomes fun that way. So again, the more you put into it, the more you get out. Same with adding notes. You can put field notes in there. I do that with water holes elk hunting a lot. If I'm doing summer scouting, I'll say, had water on August 15th or was dry on August 15th or whatever. Again, if you don't want to do any of that, you don't have to, but the more you put into it, when you come back to that waypoint a year, 2 years later, it'll be, oh yeah, I remember when I was hunting there, that water hole was good, or, I flushed some pheasants in this area or something. Hit the save button, and then now my changes have been applied to that waypoint. So that's for marking a waypoint where you want to be. Let's say you want to mark one in another area. Let's say I'm scouting and I say, oh, I'd like to go check out this area. And I've never been to this area, but let's say I want to get up here. A couple different ways to mark a waypoint here. I can go into my tools again. I can hit add waypoint, and now it's going to drop it in the middle of my screen. If that's not where I want it, my first recommendation is zoom in as far as you can. That's going to help you be more accurate, more specific. So let's say I want to mark, I'm going to get to this junction of this trail, this fork. I'm just going to tap on it. Not quite where I want. Let's zoom in more. There we go. So all I'm doing is tapping on the map. The waypoint moves to where I want it to be. I get it to where I want it. Again, rename it. Fork, give it a different color. And then I'm going to use the turn here waypoint and save it. So that's another way to mark a waypoint. What I've been using a lot more lately is called a long press. So if I hold my finger down on the map for 2 seconds, it's going to put a waypoint where my finger was. So this is easy to do accidentally. If I don't want that, I can hit cancel and it gets rid of that waypoint. But if I do want one, I'm going to press my finger down, hold it there, places the waypoint. From there, I can go in and edit it and save it. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do that for this one, but hit save, and there it is. If you already have a bunch of waypoints that you have saved and you want to edit them, again, all you have to do is tap on them and hit that edit button. If you have ones you want to delete, tap on them. You'll have a delete button down there along the bottom, farthest to the right. If you're on a smaller screen than mine, you may have to scroll through those options to see that delete button. You can also go into the edit menu and tap delete there, and that will get rid of it. All right, so there are a few other tools in there. We're already 45 minutes in, so I'm not going to go over all of them, but take a look at the line distance and the area shape, some of those other options there. They might be useful to you. It's just a bit beyond the scope of this 101. Last thing I want to talk about with waypoints, and this applies to all markups, is sharing. you can send a waypoint to a hunting buddy, to a loved one back home. So I used the example earlier of using Mark My Location for where I parked the truck. If I have cell service, I might send that to somebody and say, "Hey, this is where I'm parked. I'm planning to head into the north. I'm hoping to be out by 9 o'clock. If you don't hear from me, you might need to call for some help." So that at least if they have to call sheriff's department or search and rescue, they have a starting point, right? They know where you were. Can also use this for if I'm setting up tree stands at hunting camp and I've got a buddy who's going to come out hunting with us, he's never been there, I can send him the location of all of those waypoints. So all you do is tap on the waypoint, tap the share button. There's a couple different ways you can share. Most of the time, you're going to share with a link like is selected there. This allows me to text or email or Facebook message a link to somebody. When they tap on that link, it will open up onX on their side and they'll be able to see that waypoint. This is a tablet, so it doesn't give me the text option, but that's the most common. I'll text them all to my hunting buddy who's coming out and say, "Hey, here's all the deer stands. Make sure you get these added to your onX." And they'll be able to see them on their side. They don't have to have onX to be able to accept a share. They don't have to have the app downloaded. It will prompt them to download and start an account. So, if you've got a significant other back home and you want to send them, "Hey, this is where I'm heading in," they don't have onX, it will prompt them and take them through the process of getting that set up. The other way to share is share nearby. So this is via like AirDrop on iOS. Android is called, I think it's called Google Share. I should know that. I'm not an Android user myself. But this would be if we don't have cell service and I'm hunting with a partner, and we do have to be close to each other. We have to be, typically we're going to be within a couple feet of each other. But if we meet up after a hunt and I want to share all my intel from the day, but we don't have service, I can AirDrop those waypoints to my hunting partner. So that's pretty new, but that's pretty slick as well. So I'm just going to go back since I'm not going to share this and zoom back to Missoula. The last kind of tool I want to talk about right now is the tracker. This is another tool that I use anytime I'm going into a new area. In the lower right-hand corner, tap tracker, and then hit the start button. Now you see my blue dot has become a red dot. If I were moving, you would see my dot move across the map, and you would see a blue dotted line, a breadcrumb trail behind me, showing where I've walked or where I've driven. So again, if I'm going into a brand new area, I will use that tracker to see where I've been, and so I can find my way back out when I'm done. I use this almost every time I go upland bird hunting, just to see where we've covered and where we haven't, particularly when I'm like pheasant hunting. We might be in a big open grassy area without a lot of landmarks, or like sharp-tail hunting, where I can see areas we've covered and areas we haven't. When I'm blood trailing, I always start a tracker. Even if I know the deer is dead, I like to start that tracker so that I can see which route it took, can see exactly how far it ran. Heaven forbid I have to, get help and we get other people in there, I can share a track with them so they can see where I walked. And if we're all tracking, at the end, hopefully we find the deer or the elk or whatever. If we don't, we could all meet up and share those tracks with each other to see what areas we've covered, what areas we haven't. Shed hunters do this a lot, where they'll all be shed hunting a different area and then meet up and share their tracks so that they can see the areas of the hill they've covered and they haven't. I'm going to hit stop right now. If I had moved, I'd have the option to save this track. I didn't, so I'm just going to delete it. But a track is customizable like a waypoint. You can name it, you can change the color, you can change the style of it. So I recommend doing that as well. All right, I'm going to take a drink of water because I've been talking. Let's talk about finding your location and using the compass mode. So if you're looking at the app and you don't see your blue dot, to get the map back to your location, tap the button in the lower right-hand corner that looks like a crosshair. That's your location button. So when I tap that, it just swings the map back to where I am. If I tap it a second time, now that is going to rotate my map and put a sight cone on my dot. So that sight cone is going to show the direction my device is facing. And as I move my device, if you look at my screen, you can see me rotating the tablet. That is going to rotate with me. So north is not automatically up in this mode. So useful if I'm hiking and I want to see what's ahead of me, I'll put it into this heads up mode is what I call it. Or if I'm a passenger in a car, I will go into this so we can see what's on our right, what's on our left. Hey, we need to take this fork of the road, so we can easily do it without having to kind of do that mental gymnastics of, well, we're headed north, but the map is south, and doing all that. So that's how you get there. If you want to get out of it, in the top right corner, tap the compass, and it brings me back. Okay, so again, wrong button. I want to get back to my location, do that. I want to go into heads up mode, tap it one more time. To get into compass mode, what I do most of the time is I go back into my tools, and along the bottom of the screen in the lower left-hand corner, I'm tapping compass mode. Now this keeps that blue sight cone on my dot, but you see that my dot has been moved to the bottom of the screen, and I have this kind of gridded line emanating from the blue dot. This is our new compass motor. It's relatively new. We came out with it about this time last year, I think. At the top, I can get a compass heading. So as I rotate the map, it kind of shows me the degrees there. And then on the left-hand side, I can easily see distances. So I can see the top of my screen there. How far is that? 607 yards. As I zoom in and out, that changes. I've got kind of a nearby marker, halfway, and then the farthest on the screen along the left-hand side there. See those three different options. Where this really gets powerful, in my opinion, is when we go into our rangefinder mode. So again, lower right-hand corner, you see the button that looks kind of like a rangefinder, the top of those four buttons. I'm going to tap that, it turns red. Now a portion of my line has turned red, and I've got a waypoint icon to the left. It says 214 yards. This allows me to drop a distant waypoint at an exact yardage. So the example I often use, the real world example from last fall, was mule deer hunting in eastern Montana. I saw a bedded mule deer buck. It was one of the last days of the season, going after it, no brainer. I do a little stalk to get a little bit closer. I find a good shooting position. I lay down, I'm steady, I'm prone. I range it. It's 270 yards. So I point my phone at that deer. I'm going to tap this lock button at the bottom. So now that way, if I'm moving my device, if it's windy, if it's cold, if I'm excited because it's hunting, then the map is not going to move with my little shakes there. It's going to stay pointed where I originally wanted it. And then I'm just going to use my finger, put one finger on the map and drag it up and down. That is going to move that yardage marker. So I said 270 yards, 270. There we are. And I can tap the waypoint icon. It's going to put a waypoint there. Now, in the heat of the moment, this is where I'll break that rule. You don't have to customize it right away. If you're getting ready to shoot the deer, do what you need to do. Then go back and edit it. So I can just hit done. And there I've got that waypoint. Let's say you want to still be in this mode, but I need to get farther out, Jack. I'm zoomed in too far. Drag your finger up, move that line to the top of the screen, and it will zoom you out. That's a little too far. If I want to zoom back in, drag it to the bottom, and it'll zoom me in. So you can still zoom in and out when you're in this mode. And when the when the screen is locked, if I need to rotate this a little bit with one finger on the screen, I'm swiping left here and it rotates the map for me, or I can swipe right. So if you kind of want to fine tune it and you don't necessarily want to move your phone or want to repoint it, you can just do that with one finger as well. So that is, I love that tool. Great for, planning a stock. So let me close out of this. Let's pretend this mule deer icon is a deer I want to stock. Okay, I can place a waypoint on it. And then what I do is I go in and set a radius. Now this is getting a little bit beyond 101, but I love this and I think it's underutilized. Let's say I'm archery hunting and my effective range is 50 yards. I can set a range radius on that. Never mind. I was doing some testing here and I accidentally deleted that waypoint on another device. So I'm going to use this waypoint. I'm going to tap on it, go to waypoint radius, hit apply. Now I have a 50-yard radius circle, 100-yard in diameter, where I will know if that buck is bedded and doesn't move. Obviously we're in town here, pretend we're not. I can follow my blue dot, and as soon as I get within that circle, I know if I have a clear shot, I'm within range. Archery hunting, I'm still gonna, range it, but let's say I'm rifle hunting and my effective range is 300 yards and I have my rifle sighted in for a dead on hold from 0 to 300. I know when my blue dot crosses that line, I'm within range. If I have a good shot and I'm comfortable, I can take it. The other reason I use this waypoint or this rangefinder tool is for after the shot. That mule deer last fall, I shot it, felt like a good shot. It went over a ridge and I couldn't see it anymore. I watched the does it was with run off. The buck didn't run off. I felt good, but it was nice to have that waypoint to know exactly where to start blood trailing. If you've hunted long enough, you've hunted big game, especially in thicker brushy country. I even will use this in Minnesota. When I go back northern Minnesota, if you get a 100-yard shot in the woods, a lot of times that's a long shot. But when you climb down from the tree stand, that thick aspen, the hazel brush, all of that makes it tough to know exactly where that deer was standing once you're down there. Now I'll have a waypoint, right? So a lot of different uses for that. You can tell I'm pretty excited about that feature. That's one of my favorite ones that we've come out with in the last few years. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about base maps. So I'm going to just move out of here to an area of national forest so you can get a sense of what this looks like. So right now I have our satellite base map turned on. Should be what people are familiar with. If you've used Google Earth, same type of thing. It's a picture of the ground. Doesn't tell the whole story though. If I want more information, I'm going to go to my base map button, which is in the lower right-hand corner, right above my location button. Right now mine says SAT in 2D. Tap on that. And now I can change my base map. If I want a topographic map to get a look at the contours, I can choose that. If I want satellite, I can do that. What I personally use is the hybrid map most. That to me is the best of both worlds. It gets me satellite imagery, so I can take a look at the vegetation. It also gives me the topographic lines so that I can get a look at the elevation. If you're in a flat area, I mentioned northern Minnesota where I deer hunt, it's very, very flat. I think I measured the distance between topographic lines one time and it was like 1.5 miles. So very flat. Then you might just need satellite because the topographic's not as big of a deal. What the hybrid does get you over satellite though, that might be of interest, are these blue lines, these creeks. If I go to satellite, you see they're not there. Those water bodies only show on hybrid and topo. So those are going to show you, especially smaller creeks and streams, like these are dotted here. These are going to be your seasonal or ephemeral streams, meaning they might only have water in them during spring runoff or after a heavy rain event. Let's see if I can find one. Here's one. It's named Howard Creek. It's a solid line. That's going to more reliably hold water. So if you're doing a backpacking trip and you want to know, hey, where can we get water? These dashed lines, dotted lines, you might not be able to rely on those to have water at all times of the year. But these more solid ones, much better odds that you're going to have water there. Again, not available on the satellite map, but the hybrid and topo do show them. So those are the three kind of basic options for you there. If you do have an elite membership, there's a couple other imagery options available to you. I'm going to go back to the satellite here. And down below, you'll see we have leaf-off imagery and recent imagery. I'm going to start with recent imagery and turn that on. So recent imagery is less detailed imagery. As I zoom in, you can see it doesn't quite have the resolution of our regular map, but that's the trade-off. This is taken every 2 weeks by a satellite. So it's not meant to replace your regular imagery. It's meant to be an additional tool. If I close this menu, you see the dates that are showing there. This was taken August 4th to the 18th. And you can scroll back through time just by tapping that. So as I get back into the spring, I can start to see the snow there as I get back into the winter more. So I use the heck out of this spring bear hunting to see where the snow line is, to see where I can get. You know, if the roads are all covered in snow, I'm going to save the gas so I don't have to drive out there. In the fall, I might use it to check water levels if I'm duck hunting to see, hey, are the ponds holding water? Is everything dried up? I might check harvest. If I'm hunting in, the Great Plains, the upper Midwest, wherever really, where there's agriculture, I might check, hey, have the beans come out yet? Is the corn coming out? What does that look like? So again, not meant to replace the regular imagery, meant to be an additional tool to use. So I'm going to turn that off and get to our leaf off imagery. Leaf off, again, is an elite only feature. It's only available in, I think, 15 states right now, predominantly east of the Rockies. But if I turn that on, you can see a pretty dramatic change there in Wisconsin. So it's just imagery that's taken in the fall or the winter. So you can easily tell, you can see through some of that deciduous canopy, and you can see some trails and water bodies in there. You can easily distinguish between evergreens and deciduous trees, right? So again, we don't have it in every state. We're looking to add more. If we don't have it in your state, like we don't have it in Minnesota, you'll get a message like that says no leaf off imagery available. So we are working to add additional states. I don't have a date for you on which ones we plan to add and when, but just know if we don't have your state, we're looking for that imagery and trying to get it included. So I'm going to turn that off. Last thing I want to talk about with base maps is our 3D. Pretty much what it sounds like. I go into my base map button, I tap 3D map, and now I can get a 3D image of the surrounding area. This is super helpful because topographic lines, if you're a pro at reading those lines, you can pretty well tell how steep an area is and what it looks like. But even myself, who stares at maps all day, it is nice to have that 3D, just more easily visualize, hey, what does this drainage look like? What is it really, how steep is it? Do I want to climb up there? Are animals likely to be hanging out in there? I can spin it around. I can get a really cool look at the terrain. I did too much there. And you can also use this 3D elevation exaggeration. That's that slider to the right. So I can exaggerate this to get to expand what it looks like. This is useful in flatter areas. So if I go out to eastern Montana, for example, it's a lot flatter, right? But there's still topography. So I can more easily visualize some of these ridges that might not show at least not as obvious, and that can make a big difference if I'm out glassing in that area or looking for mule deer bedding areas or something like that. Just more easily visualize what that looks like. All right, I'm going to close out of that, get my map back to Missoula, and I'm going to talk about search now. Common question we get is, hey, can I search for GPS coordinates and mark a waypoint? Yes, you can. I'm going to show you how. In the upper right-hand corner, right below my battery indicator, there's a button that looks like a magnifying glass. I'm going to tap on that. Now I have a search bar. If I want to search for GPS coordinates, say I'm getting them from another program or a handheld GPS or something, I can just type them in here. And we recommend using the decimal format. It's easier than typing in, UTM or degrees, minutes, seconds. Sometimes those don't work so well in our search. Decimal is the way to go. So I'm going to just type in kind of a generic. I'm typing on the wrong. I tried typing that on my computer instead of my tablet. So it's probably a sign we got to wrap this sucker up here in a bit. The more decimals you can give it, the more accurate it's going to be. Your first number is going to be positive because we're in the northern hemisphere. Your second number has to be negative because we're in the western hemisphere. If you don't put that dash or that minus sign before your second coordinate, it's going to take you to the eastern hemisphere. You're going to end up in Europe or Asia or Africa or somewhere on the other side of the world. So I'm going to type in some numbers. It's going to give me some results below. I'm going to tap on that top one. That is the coordinate I just typed in. I want to mark a waypoint on that spot. I'm going to tap Add Waypoint. And now as I zoom in, you can see I've got a waypoint there that I can save. Boom. I've got a waypoint on that spot. So that's how to search for a coordinate and mark a waypoint. You can search for other things. I could search for a location. Yellowstone National Park. You can search for lakes, towns, mountain peaks, things like that. The other thing you might be interested in searching for is a landowner. So at the top here, I have two options. I have location and I have private land. If I'm looking for a landowner name, I'm going to want to use private land. So I'm just going to type in generic name, John Smith. I get a lot of results there because there's a lot of John Smiths. The more information you can give the search, the better. So if you know John's middle name, great. If the property is John and his wife, Alice, type John and Alice Smith. The more info you can give it, the better. Also, and this is probably the most important tip, move the map to the area where the land is. So you might not know exactly where John Smith's land is, but I know it's somewhere in western Montana. I'm going to move my map to western Montana. Now you'll notice all of my top results are showing Jefferson County, Ravalli County, Silverbow County. If I was looking for John Smith in Georgia, I would want to move my map to Georgia. The app prioritizes search results that are closest to the center of the map. So if you're looking in Florida, don't have the map in Alaska. Move it to Florida. That's going to give you better results. And you might have to scroll through a few of these to get the one you want. If I tap on the top one, it's going to bring me to that parcel. Okay, maybe that's what I want. Maybe it isn't. If it's not, close out of that menu, just swipe it down, go back to the search, click the second one. Okay, and it'll take you through those. So that's how to do a search. You can also do everything I just showed you, with the exception of some of the offline map stuff and the compass mode and location. You can do all of this on our web map as well. I didn't get into it in this class, but you can access onX Maps on your computer. You go to our website, www.onxmaps.com. You'll see the map there. You can mark waypoints. You can turn layers off and on. You can change your base maps. You can search. You can do all of that there, and it syncs up with your mobile device. So if I mark a bunch of waypoints on my computer on the onX web map, when I open the app up on my phone, I will see those waypoints there, and vice versa. When I go out grouse hunting this weekend with my dog, I'm going to mark all the places that we hunted. When I come back to the office after Labor Day on Tuesday morning, I'm going to pull up the map and they will all be showing there as well. So once you get back into service, everything will sync up there from your phone. And apologies, didn't have time to get into web map today, but do know that is something that's available to you. All right, I want to get back to our slideshow here. I want to put up our giveaway, so I'm going to ask one of our fine customer service representatives to post that link in the chat. So we're giving away some of our Upland Quad t-shirts here. We're giving away 10 of them. Click the link in the chat or type in this https bit.ly 101 August 24. Entries must be received by midnight tonight. So if you're watching this class after August 27th, it has closed, but we do giveaways at just about every class. So sign up for a future one and we'll give away some other sweet stuff there. I'm going to leave this up for just a bit so that everybody can get entered, and then we'll talk about a couple things and get to our Q&A here. All right. If you don't have an onX Hunt membership, we do have a 30% discount for you as thanks for joining the class. The promo code APP101 will save you 30% off your first year's membership. So it has to be that first year. You can go to this website, or you can just go to our regular onxmaps.com and go through the purchase process. The promo code has to be used on our website. It doesn't work in the App Store or Google Play Store. If you purchase through Apple or Google Play, you're going to be charged the full price, and then you're going to have to email us, and we'll have to walk you through requesting a refund and getting the promo applied on our website. So just do it on our website to start. If you have any trouble with that, I should have mentioned this at the start. Our customer support team is top notch. I know I'm biased, but they really are. Shoot us an email. It's help@onxmaps.com. That's our customer support email. We've got a whole team of folks answering those every day. So we try to answer every email within 24 business hours. If you email us tonight, you can expect a response tomorrow. So that goes for even non-promo code questions. If something didn't quite make sense tonight, or you're having any sort of issues, again, it's help, H-E-L-P, @onxmaps.com. But if you don't have a membership, save yourself some money. App101 saves you 30% off on our website. If you're looking for more information, our website also features a lot of great tutorials and frequently asked question type articles. Our YouTube channel is where we put a lot of educational content as well, including our onX Hunt Masterclasses like this one. You just have to go to our channel, go to the playlists, and then look for the one titled onX Masterclasses. We've been doing these for over 2 years now, so you can go back and see some of our previous tutorial type classes. You can see some of the classes we did on how to hunt specific species, specific animals. We've done how to hunt grouse, how to hunt rough grouse, how to hunt prairie grouse, how to call elk, how to pack meat out, all kinds of different things. We did a spring bear hunting one this year. Whatever your interest is, we probably have a class for you. Classes coming up this year. You can always check our website to see the upcoming schedule. We have an office hours we're going to be doing every month during hunting season. Those are kind of free range, ask me anything type classes. It's myself and usually one of our engineers joins me when it fits their schedule, and the audience drives those classes. So any kind of question to do with hunting, that's what we cover in those. We also are doing some deep dives. So if you are wanting more of this type of class, but a little more narrow focus and a little more depth than, compared to the breadth of this class, we pick one feature and we really go deep on it. We've done a handful of them this year. The one we're doing in September is about our Terrain X feature, which is a super sweet feature that more people need to know about. We're talking about that in September. We also do these 101s every month. So if you just want to go to another 101, or you want to send it to your hunting buddy who you always have to show how to use onX, we do those every month as well. I think our next one is September 30th will be the next 101. All right, let's get to some Q&A, and then we will send everybody on their way here. So let me pull up. Let's see. Someone asked, favorite color to use for waypoints while deer hunting? Most of my deer waypoints are the generic kind of orange, the default one, mostly because when I first got onX prior to working here, that's what I was hunting in central Minnesota where I grew up. So I just stuck with that. And then once I started hunting other stuff, I started using different colors. How many waypoints you have on your account right now? My personal account, I'm 1,600, something like that. So I mark a lot of waypoints. Somebody said I'm the best. Well, I don't know about that, but thank you. And somebody asked, how did you get to Missoula, Jack? I drove a car. That's how I got here. So with that, I think we answered all the questions that were put into this section by customer support. Hope everybody has a good evening. Again, thanks for joining us tonight. Can't tell you how much it means to us. And hunting season's about to start. We got Upland Opener here in Montana September 1st. A lot of dove seasons, a lot of deer and elk opening up. So it's the best time of year. So let's all get off our computers and go outside. Have a good night.